right, good evening and welcome to Sunday Evening Coffee. It's a special edition tonight. We're recording on Friday night. Sitting across the table from me is Krystal is in Africa. So sitting across the table from me tonight is none other than Michael Fox. Michael, tell the people, what does a fox say?
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So, and then on the other side, we've got the three stooges on the bench all squished in together. We got Brother Bill Stokes.
Yes, sir.
Tell everybody hello.
Hello.
We got Corey Maxey.
Hello.
We got Jason Zach down on the end.
Hello.
And we're hanging out on a Friday night. It's our normal life group night, and the girls, sans Krystal, are all out to eat. They went and had a little Japanese, and we had some Fox's pizza, not Michael Fox's pizza, but Fox's from the restaurant. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that we don't have our normal cookies. We have some donuts and some Halloween cookies. So
Krispy Kreme.
Thanks for not being here, Krystal. Not bitter. Although it is my favorite donut, a little custard filled, chocolate covered. My parents are in town, they kind of spoil me. So tonight we are, because it is, it's 8 o'clock. We are crazy people up at this time of night recording a podcast.
And eating donuts.
Yes.
You know what's keeping us going.
We don't have caffeine though. Well, Michael does. He's drinking some Diet Coke, sucking down the aspartame. We're drinking Pete's decaf tonight.
What?
We're still on the...
Newsflash.
One of us just found out.
I shouldn't have said
Have
that.
another donut.
Yours is actually caffeinated. You got yours from the middle of the craft, right? That's the caffeinated part.
That's right.
So this is, you guys, have you had the Pete's before? Pete's is good. It's good stuff.
This is good stuff.
It's become about our favorite here at Sunday Evening Coffee.
Yes.
Although Krystal told me today, I was FaceTiming Krystal, and she told me she was going to bring back some African coffee. And I was like, yeah, that's great. So today, she says to me, Rob asked how much coffee I wanted, and she said, so I just gave him the rest of the American money that I had, and he was just going to get that. And I said, well, how much did you have left? And she said, $160. And I said, okay, how much coffee does that buy? And she said 12 pounds. I'm like,
Wow.
so apparently we're getting 12 pounds of African coffee.
African coffee.
So,
Just put you over the weight limit coming home.
speaking of which, the flight they take on Sunday, she said that the way they judge the weight of the plane, there's a string tied to the tail, and when it touches the ground, they can't put any more weight in the plane.
Serious.
It's very scientific. So it's definitely...
String.
Someone's going to run in the back and cut the string real quick to get more on there.
Don't do it.
Pray for a breeze.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so we're sipping on a little Pete's coffee, and we've been hanging out tonight, and we're gonna talk about some guy stuff. So we're gonna talk about what does it mean to be a godly husband, a spiritual head, and how does that play out? And these guys are all in life group with us, and so we talk every week, and we know kind of what's going on. We can kind of play off of each other. So I thought it'd be a good group of guys to have on the podcast and kind of just talk through what we feel like it means. And
Corey's making a mess over here.
oh, yeah, go watch the YouTube.
He's trying so hard.
I can't. I'm just gonna keep going. So the whole thing about the godly spiritual head and what does that mean and what does that look like, and we'll just kind of talk. If you guys want to talk, jump in. We talk over each other all the time, so feel free to dive in. The first thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was, I don't feel like that it's even remotely possible to be the godly head, the spiritual leader, and to be Christ-like without spending time in the Word. That's obviously number one, at least in my book. I feel like there's no way that you're going to love your wife like Christ loved the church unless you're plugged in. You know what's going on in the Word. So that's kind of where I want to start. You guys, take it whatever direction that you want to go and what you think about that. And then we'll just kind of walk through anything that you have. I have a couple of notes, but not a lot. I really just want to be more just free flow discussion. So,
yeah, I agree 100% that it's the Word before anything.
Yeah. It has to be. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the foundation.
Yeah, it's very important to get that in. I mean, not only to yourself, but then that flows out into your marriage. Is God's number one, and allowing Him. And we had done the feet washing, a couple weeks ago, and that's really the line you need to take is God's first, and then your spouse comes next. And so that, that's something that we've even done as a group a lot, is try to get up early and have devotions in the morning, and make that your first fruits of your day. And I think that's very important, and it definitely comes out the good and the bad, meaning that if you don't do it, then you start going down that slippery slope that you're not being the leader that you need to be.
Yeah.
So, and I think we all struggle.
And you've covered like 3 of my 5 points in your first 2 sentences. So thanks for listening tonight, guys. And
see you next week.
no, that is true. And it's funny because my next point was the early morning prayer. I think that, and Krystal and I, we're just like everybody else. We do good for a minute, and then we fall off that wagon, and we're back on it and on and off it. But the point is, it's more about just really crucifying our flesh, because that's what it is at the end of the day. If you don't want to get up, it's a flesh. It's not. It's a spiritual battle that Satan's going, just sleep for 5 more minutes, or go work out, or go do whatever. And it's saying, no, you know what? And one of the things that I've tried really hard to do is, I'm really bad first thing in the morning to check my email, to check Facebook, and to do all those things. And so God convicted me. If you're going to pick up your phone first thing, then it better be to read the Bible. And I was like, fine, God. That's what I'll do. I'll read the Bible.
I had something really awesome happened the other day. I got up early and was praying for Natasha, and just prayed that, she would just have a good day and just have peace with the situation that's going on, and just allow her and the kids to just have a blessed day. And she texted me, and I didn't tell her anything about it. She didn't even know I got up and prayed. And she texted me about, 9:30, 10 o'clock, just out of the blue. And she's like, I'm having the most wonderful day. I'm just, I'm just happy. And, and I texted her back and let her know that I did pray. And I was like, that's just God's way of saying, hey, I heard you this morning. And it was awesome just to get that, not reassurance, but just confirmation that He heard me.
Well, and it's awesome for her, but it's awesome for you too, because it is that it is reassurance of God just going, I'm listening to what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's awesome that she had an awesome day. And had peace, and so it was cool.
The Bible's full of a lot of commands that tell us and challenge us as husbands to be leaders. And you've hit on a couple of points that, the Bible talks about, as Christ loved the church, we're supposed to love her and take care of her like we would our own body. And I think an awful lot about the way you get up in the morning, whether it be praying, getting up first thing, getting in the Word, or taking care of, lifting your spouse up. Unless you take care of those priorities first, you as a leader, I don't think, have an awful lot to be able to stand on for the day.
Yeah.
So it's almost, you got to get the foundation right first before you can expect to be anything else in your home.
For sure.
So, good points.
Well, and the thing too, if you look at it from a work perspective, we either all have bosses or have had bosses at some point. There's no way that you're going to be better at your job unless you're spending time under who's over you.
There you go.
And there's no way that we're going to be a better leader if we're not spending time with our leader. And that flows up in church, that flows up with our relationship with God, and then it also flows down with our relationship with our spouses. And it scares me sometimes when I really stop and think, and I read through Scripture, and I know that my responsibility to my wife and to my kids, what that responsibility is. And Jeff Gregory talked about it when he was on the podcast. Every single decision at the end of the day for my family that lives in these four walls falls on my shoulders. That's mine. I have to carry that. Whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision, it's mine to carry, and that's sobering. And it does scare me somewhat, because I know that I don't spend enough time praying, and I know that I don't spend enough time doing the things that I need to be doing, that God's called me to do. So it is a sobering thing to think about, and one of the things that really does convict me of, and obviously, like I said, we all do great, and we fall off the wagon, do great, and fall off the wagon of, our devotions, our prayer time, and all that. But I think, in general, because of church and our life groups and the things that we're doing, our relationship with Christ deepens every day. I'm definitely, I've been saved for a number of years, and my relationship's definitely better than it was even 6 months ago with God, and even so with Krystal. And so I think that one of the fruits of that is because I made a decision that I'm going to pray for her every day, and I'm going to be faithful to pray for her multiple times throughout the day. And I think that's another key to being the spiritual head and being that leader and that example that we need to be, is being able to take time multiple times throughout the day. The book that I was reading, The Power of a Praying Husband, is so powerful, because it does give you the insight to understand that women are just this big bundle of emotions, and no matter how spiritual they get, they never ever really are able to completely control their emotions. It's just the way that they're wired. So part of what our role is as a husband is to understand that, and understand how to pray for them, and to not react, but just how to act when they're in an emotional frame of mind. So that's something that has been really helpful for me, is just understanding that my first role is to pray for her.
And that's also a sign of you being a servant, because we've talked about, I know on the podcast quite a bit, about how Christ came to serve us, and he served and he served us by dying on the cross, and that's something that we need to follow in those footsteps. And so just even getting up and doing the godly devotion every morning and doing that prayer time, that's a way you're serving him as well as you're serving your spouse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Michael, you're quiet.
I'm listening. All such good points.
Christ obviously was the ultimate example of servanthood. So, I mean, if we really look at the example that he is, we would definitely all be better servants. Servanthood doesn't come naturally to me. So it can be a challenge. So it's one of those things, again, if we're spending time in the Word and we're modeling ourselves after who Christ was and who the person of Christ was when he was here on earth, he definitely was a servant. So that's definitely the starting point. One of the other things that we talk about in Life Group all the time, and we've talked about it a couple of times on the podcast, is 1 Corinthians 13:4, the love verses. And the more that I read this, I wrote it down twice this week just because I would catch myself going, man, I really got to work on these. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy or boast, it is not arrogant or rude, it does not insist on its own way, it is not irritable or resentful, it does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but it rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends.
It's hard to get all those right.
It is. Mm-hmm. But do you not think, and being completely honest here, do you not think if we really committed that and read that and meditated on that throughout the day, I really think that
you could get it.
Well, I don't know that we'd ever get it all right, but I think every single relationship that we have would be so much better.
Yeah,
right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Everybody we come in contact with,
every single person, from the top down. Our marriages. If we would meditate on that and get that in our spirit, our marriages would be phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. You'd be contagious to everybody around
you. Would be.
Like, people would want to be around you.
Absolutely.
And know what's going on. Like, why are you like this?
That's right.
And how do you get there? That's my big thing. I want to do that. I want to, but in the the heat of an argument or a disagreement, it's hard to go, Love is patient. I want to love is kind. I want to throat punch you. Love is
Treat it like a count to 10.
That's being patient. Count to 10. So how do you guys walk that verse out? Because we've talked about it a lot. How are you putting that into practice?
I'll start. Part of the biggest challenge for me that has been slow to speak, slow to anger. It's not only my reaction, and it's kind of, this is how it's evolved. So it's been a real focus of mine to try and not be so reactionary as quickly as I am. And to be quite honest with you, as things happen around me, I'm real quick to snap. It's kind of one thing I've always struggled with. So as soon as I feel like I've meditated on that enough and I put it into practice and I pull back and restrain however you can, however you need to, the next thing that I've been convicted of is not just slow to speak, slow to anger in terms of my reaction, but now it's my tone.
Yeah.
So it's not just the conviction about the words you use or don't use through your restraint, but it's the tone in which you respond.
Did Krystal tell you to talk about this?
Seriously.
No. My wife sure would be happy I am. Because, but that's exactly where we're at right now. There's a I guess it's a Facebook page by Dave Willis that my wife subscribes to and I subscribe to as well. And he talks an awful lot about the power of the words that we use, but nothing's quite as powerful as the tone of those words.
Yeah.
So for me, that's been the next level of conviction, is not just putting that into practice, but now how it's delivered.
Yeah.
Because I do tend to be, I tend to be very directive. You know, I snap, I'm quick, trying to get quick answers all day. My wife walks in while I'm home on an office day, and I respond to her exactly the way I've just responded, either in an email or on a phone call with someone. Yeah. So it's that quick tone, and you can be very directive through your tones.
Yeah, the tone thing is definitely that's a great point, because that's my biggest struggle. I'm not overly reactionary anymore. I've gotten to the point that I've got a handle on that. I can think ahead of that. But the tone, I have a condescending tone, and I know that I do.
Yep.
And it comes out all the time.
I got a smart aleck tone.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's bad. I know that I do.
I think my biggest issue is the patience thing at the end of the day. I feel like I focus on that kind of stuff so much throughout at work, making sure I'm not, with kids and all this kind of thing, just making sure I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep it. And then by the time I get home, the minute my son does something just very minute, it's just, and then, So the tone thing. That tone thing is not good. Sorry, Shayna.
What other ways have you guys found that verse has really challenged you?
It challenges me in all areas, I guess.
Yeah.
At some point in time.
I think the biggest thing is your reactions are different. They're
different situations.
Different there shouldn't be, but they're different sometimes with your family and with a person out in public. And that's where you kind of that's where I have an issue with, is treating a person out on this, grocery store in public, and how are you treating your spouse and your family at home?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge difference, and that's what I struggle with is how because you're comfortable around your family. And all of those, that whole verse goes on every aspect of patient and slow to speak, slow to anger, and all of those aspects are a key part to be put into practice at home.
Absolutely.
And that should be the most important place you put into practice.
The most challenging for me is it does not seek its own way. Mm-hmm. Not there.
You mean every way is not Brian's way?
It's a nasty weakness of the choleric personality. I want it my way. And I think too what makes that, and Bill will get this from the sales aspect, when you're in sales, your whole life is persuading people to do what you want them to do. And so when that's your personality and that's what you do for a living, when you come home, you do manipulate, and you don't even think about it being manipulation, the things that you're doing, and until you are trying to meditate on this, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to watch this, or I don't want to go there, but I will. and so that's probably the biggest struggle. I mean, they're all a struggle for me on some days, like you said, but the not wanting my own way, because I do want my own way. Yeah. I'm a know-it-all, and I want it my way.
Because it's the right way.
It's the right.
Yeah. Michael's got it.
I didn't say that. I just. So
he
that's.
texted to me. So.
You bring up a heck of a good point, Jason. It's one thing that I've struggled with an awful lot. And my wife's pretty frequent to point it out as well. And we do this, and especially being around the public, is how we treat people that we encounter differently than we do our own spouse. And it's a tough question to answer when you're first asked by your spouse is, why do you treat everybody else differently or better than you treat us?
Yep.
Not just her, kids included.
Yep.
At times. So, and it like you said, there's that level of familiarity, I guess, or comfort that you have at home that you just don't have around everyone else. Plus, you're putting on a show for everyone else. You can't be as authentic, and defenses tend to come down. And then there's that verse that that commands you to love your wife like the church, to put her at the ultimate high, and prioritize her above anything and anybody else, including those people that you treat better than her.
Yeah.
And boy, is that tough, right? So it
is. It's hard, and one of the things too that that, and I'll just say it, and it's probably going to make some women listeners mad, but I'm not a chauvinist, and I'm not a Baptist thumping my Bible going, I'm the man, I'm in control. That's not my MO at all, because that's not the way that Christ ran the church. Krystal and I make decisions together, but she does understand ultimately that spiritually it does fall on my shoulders.
Yes, sir.
And at the end of the day, we can argue and fuss about it, which we don't normally, but if it's a big decision, we're going to talk through it. But at the end of the day, it's my decision to make.
Yes, sir.
And there are women that do not get that. There are women that want to wear the pants. They don't want to be submissive. And submissive in the context of society has become such a bad word.
That's right.
Such a bad word. Oh, there's no man going to tell me what to do. And that's not at all how the relationship with your spouse is designed to be. And if a man has that attitude, then the relationship's messed up.
Yeah.
He's not Christ-centered. He's not a Christ follower, because that's not, if you study the scripture at all, that's not at all how that's meant to work out. But I do, and I'll say this, I believe wholeheartedly that if women feel like they're in control and they're not going to submit, they are in sin, and they're in rebellion to God's word, and they're never ever going to have blessings in their house until they get that lined up. Now, maybe that means it's the husband's issue because he's not lined up correctly spiritually, and the woman has to step up. So don't misinterpret what I'm saying, but there is a hierarchy there. When the man is submitted to Christ and loves his wife like Christ loves the church, then a wife is submitted to the husband.
Let me just tag on to that, because I'm a firm believer in what you said, and I also understand where some of the confusion exists within our society. I believe that women are comforted by knowing that their man's in control, and women desire to be submissive and to follow his lead. She was put on our earth to be our helper, and I think women desire to follow a spiritual leader in the same way that children desire to be disciplined and pulled into correction.
Yeah.
It shows love, right?
Yep.
So I say that to all the naysayers.
Yeah. For sure.
Who may feel offended by your remarks.
We might get some emails.
Bring them on.
Just us boys anyway.
Not to derail, but speaking of which, we've gotten some horrible comments over Jack Scalfani's podcast because he talked about just multiple things. Just have to go watch it. And I've had to delete most of them because they were so vulgar. There's a couple I left because they didn't use bad language, but some of them were just wow, bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ecclesiastes 4:12 says, "And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him, and a three-fold cord is not quickly broken." And not to take that verse out of context, but I really believe that the three-cord strand in the relationship of your spouse is you and God and your spouse. You know, the three of you together, you're not going to quickly be broken. If God is part of the rope that you're in, then there's no way it's going to be broken. And I don't think we ever really take advantage of understanding that. You know, the paracord that's weaved together and they do three strands of it, there's a reason, because it's stronger than just one by itself or two. And I don't believe that a marriage can be strong unless it's, you know, three-cord strand and it's woven in with Christ in the middle of it. So, and
it also keeps away all the desires of extramarital affairs or you know, the always desiring more or getting too caught up in the I want all of the material things, and so it definitely keeps you stronger in that aspect as well, to keep you more grounded.
For sure. Talking about the desires and the material things, I was listening to a podcast this week about that if we stop and really think about it, none of us are really in need for anything. As Krystal's over in Africa, and the pictures that I'm seeing of these kids that, you know, have nothing, and they're running around there excited because they've got one kid. I saw a picture today. He had the wheel of a bicycle, and he's running around chasing it, just rolling it.
I saw that too, yeah.
And I'm like, we are so petty. We are so petty.
So caught up in that first world struggle nonsense, whatever that is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and you know, we have a roof over our head. It's 72 degrees in my house right now as we're recording this. It's Jason's one of the petty ones. I'm just saying.
Go back and tweet that.
I'm squished in the seat back here with the two men.
That's right. Snuggle up.
You're squished.
I'm hanging off the bench over here.
Just so you know, Bill and Jason are on their bookend, and Corey's just kind of stuck in the middle of a bench seat that's really made for two. So if you're not watching on YouTube, you can feel sorry for Corey.
He's holding his own.
He is.
He really is. Proud for him.
I'm perfectly comfortable. I'm good.
Yeah.
And it's completely fine because Bill's drinking out of my Dallas mug. So, I mean,
South Fork Ranch.
he's got his man card. He's good to go. And we don't have any cupcakes either, Pastor, just in case you're listening. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, we don't really want for anything. And I think that within the realm of marriage, how many arguments are about finances because of, I want to go here, or I want to do this, or I want this. And that's not directed at women, that's at men too, because I think we're all very quick to think, well, I want a new truck, or I want those boots, or a woman wants a purse, or whatever, you know, and we want for nothing. Not really. I mean, there's not one thing that I can sit here and tell you, man, I really need this. I need this to be able to function and to move on. The only thing that we need is to serve Christ and do the things that He's called us to, and He equips us to be able to do that with what we have right now today. And that's one of the things that I think as husbands we have to get in our spirit, that there's a major difference between wants and needs within our marriages, and understanding that and being okay with where we're at today, not always just thinking, well, I've got to get the next biggest house, the next best car, and forward thinking that has nothing to do with Christ. Not a thing. How many of our desires throughout the day have to do with, I wish I could win the lottery so I could buy a bigger house, or I wish I could do this so I could do that. How many of those times when you say, I wish I could do this or do that to further the kingdom? How many of us truly have that desire? I want to be a better husband so my kids can see a godly parent, a godly husband. I think we miss the mark on that a lot.
As far as money goes, though, it's actually interesting you said that, because we used to have arguments about money and stuff like that, but like over the last couple of years, it's turned into the only thing we need to do financially is put money away for our kids and tithe. Yeah. And that's what Keegan sees all the time. He just knows that he's got money. He won that little thing on the stage last week at church, got $10, and I was like, that's great. You got to bring $1 to church next week. Yeah. And he's like, what? I was like, look, you can get $1 from your change thing, because he wanted to keep his 10. He didn't want his 10 to break up. But as this, so that's the only thing he sees is pay bills, buy groceries, and tithe as far as money's concerned. That's all he even ever hears about money now. So that's one thing we thought actually we've gotten a lot better about, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome. That's another thing in being the spiritual head. All of us at the table have kids, and you really stop and think about what example are you setting for your kids. Do your kids hear you praying? Do you pray with your kids every day? Bill's a little bit different because his kids have all flown the coop.
That's right.
Yes, sir. But for the rest of us, we also have kids at home, and it's definitely one of those things that I get convicted of it, and we pray with our kids every night. We pray with them on the way to school or out to the bus stop. It's non-negotiable. It happens every day. But I know there are things that I don't do that I want my kids to see me do. And one of the things that Jeff Gregory talked about on his podcast that just so impacted me was the way that he set order up in his house for them to understand what the priorities were. Is he went and he washed his whole family's feet, but he started with his wife, and then his next oldest daughter, and then his youngest daughter. And he established that order. And that just impacted me, and I thought, man, that's it. His kids understand that his wife comes first, and his youngest daughter understands that his oldest daughter comes before she does. And just establishing that order, and obviously by being a servant, he's just like Christ. He's serving, and he's loving his wife and his family like Christ loved the church. And in parenting, we have such a big responsibility to set them up. I have all girls. And so I want them to see me treat their mother the way that I want a man to treat them, because I want them to have that expectation. I want them to see me opening Krystal's car door, and I want them to see me praying over her, and I want them to hear me praying over her. I don't want it to be, well, they think Daddy prays over Mommy. I want to see them, before she left on her trip, I anointed her with oil and I prayed over her, and I want my kids to see that. I want them to see that that's normal and that's okay, and they should expect that when they get married and they have a spiritual head of their house. I want them to see that's what's normal. Yeah. They don't ever feel uncomfortable over being prayed over in tongues, or they don't feel uncomfortable about oil or anything else. That it's all in Scripture, so it's all okay.
Well, one thing that I really took out of Jeff's podcast is that the creating the order, and I try to do that even when I come home in the evenings from work every day. And it's so easy just to say hi, how you doing, and go change clothes, drop clothes off, whatever. And but I try to make it a point that I go to Jen first, and then I go to Cheyenne, and then I go to Caitlin, and then I go to Kaylee, and I try to give them a little bit of time together, even just a 30 seconds to a minute. I want to show them that I care about them, and I'm happy to come home.
They're your priority at that moment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the things that we did as a life group back last year, and I guess Jason was the only one that was around when we did it, but we did something called Intentional in 2014. And there is something so important about living intentional. If you live intentionally with everything that you do, you're going to be much more of an impact for Christ, not only in your house, but outside your four walls too. Being intentional with how you do things, and Christ was very intentional in how he did things. All throughout Scripture, everything is very intentional, from ceremonially to what they did with the ark and what they did with the presence of God, and everything was very intentional. It wasn't just flippant. And we walk through life and we walk through our marriages flippantly most of the time.
Agreed.
So one of the verses that we've kind of talked about all night, and we've hit on it, is Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy, without blemish. So if we take that whole context and we chew on that, are we doing what we need to do to make our spouses holy without blemish? Are we praying for them the right way? Are we building them up? Are we leading by example? Are we showing them every single day? Are they seeing us in the Word even when they're not? Are we presenting them as blameless and without blemish by the way that we're living? And so that was kind of the last point that I wanted to make and wanted to really focus on is, are we doing that? And if not, what can we do to make sure that we're doing that? And go.
I think that one of the biggest things is, for me, is trying not to see all of her faults, and that's what was in there. But not looking at the blemishes, and when you are putting God in first in your life, and you're trying to be the head of the household, you're looking towards him. You're not necessarily looking towards her faults, and that's something I struggle with, is always trying to point out her faults or and kind of stab, type of thing. And so that's the thing that I know I need to work on is as a husband to get better, and is to focus on him, and because if I focus on him, he's going to make my viewpoint to her look more pure.
Absolutely.
And not a always seeing what she's done wrong.
It's like Austin Powers when the mole, isn't that the one? Holy moly! That's the most obvious thing. Right. Is that whoever had the mole? I can't remember now, but anyway, was the mole, and that's what you focus on. Then you become obsessed with it, and that's what you're always pointing out. Yeah. That's what you're focused on. You're not focused on the 95 other good things, other qualities that your spouse has. You're focused on that one that drives you insane, and you want to point it out and rub it in and make sure that it stays sore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the more you're thankful for it, and like you were saying, the 95 things that she is good at or whatever, it takes your attention off that, and it may even go away. And God may change it.
Absolutely.
He may change her that she doesn't do whatever it is anymore.
Well, and Jason talked about when they were kind of giving their testimony on the podcast, you have the faith like a mustard seed. You can say to this mountain, move, and it will. And the way that he kind of walked that out in that episode was, it's not necessarily that the mountain really moved. God became so big that mountain, when you look back at it, is not really a mountain at all. Yeah. It's not the same thing. And so I think that's what happens with our spouses too. When we get ourselves to where we've prayed our heart to a spot to be tender to our spouse, those things that were huge, that drove us crazy, now you're like, who cares? Mm-hmm. Look at all this other stuff.
Because really, in the end, it really doesn't matter.
No.
So.
Mm-hmm. No, not at all.
There's a quote, you're talking about presenting her blameless, and how does the verse actually read?
Without blemish.
Without blemish. Mm-hmm. Without blemish. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little earlier as far as some of our natures. My nature sometimes is to be a little critical about things. And if I'm obviously trying to present her in a light of being blameless, certain things that cause you to rethink things and hold your tongue. I read a quote the other day that was talking about marriage. It said marriage isn't 50-50. It's divorce is 50-50, if you really want to think about it. Marriage should be 100-100.
That's right.
And it talks an awful lot and challenges us both as husband and wife, instead of being critical or trying to present blame, because that's sometimes what we get cast into, is we defend ourselves, human nature. But if your intentions are to try and present her without blame or her without blemish, man, it's the mindset and it's the changing of the focus. You know what? There's this argument may not have doesn't really not necessarily who wins or who loses.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's because we're both going to end up losing. Let's try and find a solution where we both can win, and where at the end of the day, in her mind and in her eyes, still try and prioritize her and her need without blemish.
Yeah.
And man, it's ongoing for us, for me especially. So
Minute by minute. I mean, it really is.
that's true. True.
My struggle in that area is I like to make people laugh, and so it's all about the story. It's all about the laugh, and I've gotten better. I still struggle, but I've gotten better with. Krystal is an easy target because I'm with her and I have so many stories about her. It's easy to make her the butt of a joke, and I know it's wrong. So I've gotten better, but it's still a struggle because sometimes she just does stuff that's so funny, but then she may not think it's funny, and I've not presented her as without a blemish and without a spot or wrinkle. I've shown her spots. Who was it? The pastor that came in that talked about, part of what our role is in relationships, and especially to our pastor and to our spouses, is not to show their nakedness. To the things that are their faults. We want them to be without spot or wrinkle, and the last thing that we want to do is to point those things out. So that's definitely a struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
Closing thoughts, guys. Michael, what do you got to close this up with?
Well, no, actually, I was going back to you say, what do I struggle with the most as far as like leading?
Yeah.
My biggest thing is not being satisfied with where I am. It's like, well, everything's going really well right now. It's been going well for a few years now, so I must be doing something right. So let's just kind of keep it here with where I am spiritually and everything. And I'm like, but then I still look across the way, and she is so far above where I am. I need to keep that as motivation. It's like, all right, if I'm supposed to be the leader, then I need to get above that, and that's just.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just get stuck in this. Everything's going great right now. I must be doing something right. Everything's good. So let's just keep it where it is. So yeah, it's not the right idea. Because then I could fall back to where it was a few years ago before I even started thinking about anything spiritual. So that's not where I want to wind up again. So
well, and the danger is when you get complacent too. You get comfortable and you become lukewarm. And instead of hot or cold,
right?
That's a more dangerous place even than being on being cold.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things just to focus on is putting Christ first in your whole life, and not only just going to church. Because that's not even remotely part of it.
Yeah,
it's your everyday, every minute by minute walk that I think is very crucial to live as a godly husband. Because if not, you are going to seriously fail according to Christ standards.
Yeah,
and that's what we got to really look at is what is the Christ standards, because Christ standards and world standards are completely different, and and even our standards, because we might think, oh, I'm going to church, I'm looking good, and I got a nice house, kids are doing great, I'm comfortable, but in the end, you're not. It's all like starting to call it out. But I think
there's my blemish.
I got to work on that. So that's. I think the premise of for being a godly husband is minute by minute try to work towards what he wants you to do, and go to him for guidance on everything.
Yeah, refining day by day.
Every day.
I mean, it is. It's the fire that refines us every day. Thank God we're not where we used to be, but we're moving ahead, right?
Definitely.
Just continue to seek Jesus, His Word, draw near to Him, and He'll draw near to you and show you how to be a godly husband. Be thankful for your wife every day and just pray over her and keep seeking Jesus.
It's good stuff.
Well said.
Ditto.
I'll close out with these thoughts. For me personally, I get convicted of this, and of course, Carla helps convict me of it.
That's what part of their job is to
The
do.
Lord speaks through those who love us.
She's connected, and she opens up and prophesies. No. In this case, we focus so much in our jobs and things that are earthly and on the surface seem so important to our each and everyday walks of life. For me, it is not a big deal at all. In fact, is an expectation in my job or in what I do to develop myself.
Yep.
If I'm supposed to read a leadership book or supposed to read a book on conversations or negotiations or whatever it is, I make it a point to develop those and make a development plan for myself. But the last time that I challenged myself to sit down and make the same type of focus to develop the same type of plan for me spiritually, we opened up this conversation by talking about opening your day with prayer, praying for yourself, building your body, building your soul, and your, as Christ loves you, and so that you can give back. Oftentimes, Carla will say to me, you take so much effort in doing things, what's important for work. When was the last time that you did something for yourself spiritually? Getting stronger in the Word, studying the Word as hard as you do these other things. And so that's kind of where I close, is kind of where we opened. Is for me the importance of staying a little bit plugged in, and not being so focused on things that benefit us from an earthly standpoint, but that benefit us spiritually to become better leaders in our home. And for me, that's my charge.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a great point. I think we probably all should have a spiritual development plan. We are quick to have one for work. Here's where I want to be at work in 2 years. Here's where I want to do. How much do we really do that within the realm of, where I want to be with Christ in 2 years?
So that's today's challenge.
There you go. Make a spiritual development plan.
Yeah.
That is good. I like that. All right. Well, man, that was good. I appreciate you guys. I know it's out of your comfort zone. Corey and Michael, they were a little apprehensive about it, but had some good input.
Real good input.
Yep.
So thanks for being here, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for the decaf.
Thanks for the decaf. I told you yours wasn't decaf.
We got the bottom of the pot just a second ago.
The bottom was decaf, sorry.
It's all good.
So, as always, check out the website, sundayeveningcoffee.com. Send us an email. We'd love to hear from everybody that's listening. I got a message actually through social media this week from India. Some people listening. So, and tracking the website, it's amazing because every day we literally have people that come to the site from Russia and from India and from different places. So it's cool to see that and to hear feedback. So if you're listening from another country, send us an email. Let us know where you're listening from specifically. So sundayeveningcoffee@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, and Periscope. We Periscope every week right before we do the actual recording, so you can kind of see where we're at in the life cycle. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next week on Sunday Evening Coffee.